Everybody, it's Chef Howard from the JCC and another Corona cooking episode. So let's show you what we're going to do today. What it is we're going to be doing something called a salmon in a smoky tomato broth. So here are the ingredients that we're going to be using. We've got two beautiful fillets of salmon. Use whatever kind you want, wild salmon, Chinook, whatever. This is just regular Atlantic salmon, which I've removed the skin from one piece. I'm going to show you how to remove the skin from the other piece, and we're going to use that skin for part of the dish. I've already got one piece of the skin here, and we'll show you how we're going to be using those. The broth that it's going to go into is going to be a simple can of crushed tomatoes, diced tomatoes, petite tomatoes. It does not have to be the really good Italian tomatoes. Should we cover the brand? Yeah, we'll cover the brand. It doesn't have to be the really good stuff for this dish. It's going to take one of my favorite spices, which is why it's called a smoky tomato broth, which is going to be smoked paprika. What I have here is a combination of about 1/4 of a cup of white wine and 1/4 of a cup of chicken broth. You do not have to use the white wine. You can use all chicken broth. It's not really going to make a difference. And we have a little bit of rice wine vinegar. You don't have rice wine vinegar, you can use sherry vinegar, you can use apple cider vinegar, white distilled vinegar. I would not recommend the dark balsamic vinegar because it's going to ruin the color of this dish. And the vinegar gives a little bit of the tartness that this dish is going to need to help offset the smokiness from the smoked paprika. It's also going to get a little topping on top at the end of some scallion greens and some crushed nuts. In this case, I had cashews around, so I'm going to do that. Now, the first thing before we go over to the stove is I want to show everybody that it's very easy to skin a piece of salmon. What you need is a very sharp knife. And you go to one of the ends, and I think I'm going to start at this end, and you go in there with the sharp knife, and you begin to expose that skin. And as you see, the skin has started to expose, so you put the knife there, and you just slide it along the bottom, and you begin to kind of pull at the salmon as you slide the thing across. You can see the skin is beginning to come loose from the salmon. You want to get it without leaving much, if any, meat on the bottom. Other piece went a lot easier, folks. If you do leave a little meat, I'll show you what you do. There we go. We're starting to go better now. And there is the fillet coming off the skin right now. Let's see how I did. I did pretty good. Got a little bit of meat there, not a big deal. You can leave that if you want, or you can go in with that knife and remove some of that meat, which really is very little. The little bit that's still there is fine. Okay, so we've got the two skin pieces of salmon, and we're going to head on over to the stove and show you that this is actually very easy to prepare. Alrighty then, so we're over here at the stove now, and the first thing we're going to do is going to get the sauce going. So we're going to take that can of tomatoes, and the entire can is going into the food processor. Does not have to be a big food processor, as you can see. What else is going to go in is going to be the white wine and chicken stock, or all chicken stock, about 1/2 cup, and a little bit of the vinegar. Tablespoon maybe. You don't have to really measure. You can look at it. Just a little bit to go in there. And then, of course, comes that smoked paprika. I'm using a good heaping teaspoon, maybe closer to 1.5 teaspoons. If you make this and you feel it's too smoky, adjust, or not smoky enough. The next time you make it, you can make it a little bit less or more smoky. I'm just going to grab my salt, which I keep in a salt cellar, and we're going to grab a little bit of kosher salt, and we're going to season that up like that. So we're going to buzz this up now. And once we buzz it up, we're going to put it on the heat and we'll be back in a moment. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take that salmon skin, which I've got over here, and what we're going to do is we're going to get that ready to put into the broiler. So this is what the salmon skin looks like right now. And what I'm going to do on both sides is I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil. I'm preheating my broiler right now. A little bit of salt, and this may look like quite a bit of salt, but this is actually really good when it's salty. We're going to flip them over, and what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit more of the olive oil, and we're going to put, let's get the towel real quick so we don't put our fingers back in the salt thing with a little oil on it, and we're going to put a little bit more salt on there, and you'll see this is going to act as a great garnish. So let's go over here to the broiler, and this is going to go underneath a hot broiler for a few minutes. We're going to keep our eye on it because we're going to keep flipping it to a couple of sides. We don't want to make salmon jerky out of it, but we want a nice crisp piece of salmon skin, which is going to go great with the salmon that we're making. So let's head over this way and we'll be with you in another second. Okay, back over at the stove. Let's take a look at what's going on with the sauce. It's been about 10 minutes. I brought it up to a boil. I've lowered it down. We can bring it back up to a higher boil, and you can see that's what you kind of want. And then we're going to turn it down to a nice simmer, and we're going to put a cover on it to let it keep simmering and go from there. Now, I preheated a non-stick pan. There's a non-stick pan for a reason, because the salmon doesn't have the skin, and we want to be safe and make sure that it does not stick. So into the pan is going to go some olive oil or whatever oil you like. I like to use the olive oil. I like the flavor of it. We're going to season the fish with a little salt. And let me grab my pepper grinder. And we're going to season it up with a little black pepper. It's not going to need anything more than that. I'm going to check and see that the pan is nice and warm. Let's lower it down a little bit. And we're going to go in with the seasoned side first, and that's the sounds you want to hear. You can see where the skin was removed. This is not going to take very long. One piece is a little bigger than the other. I'm going to hit it with a little more black pepper on the bottom because we don't like our food to taste just good on one side. I don't think there's any need to put a second amount of salt on the second side, and this will do very nicely, and we're going to keep our eye on it. So now, we're going to make a side dish for this. We're just going to make some plain, simple garlic spinach. It's going to be sauteed in some olive oil. Again, I preheated and I'm using a wok, simply because we've got a lot of fresh spinach here. This is 2 bunches of washed and cleaned spinach. This will shrink down to almost nothing, barely enough for Ellen and I to share. That salmon is really making a lot of noise. It sounds good. So once this comes to a nice temperature, we're going to start to add all of this spinach. Let's put some of the garlic in now. In fact, let's put it all in now. Again, it's a couple, even 3 cloves of garlic. We love garlic around here. And we're going to put more of the spinach in. Yes, it'll shrink down, don't worry. It may take a minute or 2. That goes in. We lost a leaf there. That goes in. And we can quickly put a cover over it, which will help kind of steam saute the salmon. The spinach. Let's go over to the oven. I'm going to grab my tongs first. And let's check our salmon skin. What I'm going to do is I'm going to reach in and I'm going to just flip that salmon skin onto the other side. And let's push it back under the broiler and leave that alone. Okay, the spinach is beginning to do its sauteing. The salmon is cooking very nicely on one side. As you can see, it's getting some nice color. We want a little bit more color on that side. Now this narrower piece will probably cook. It'll take a little longer to cook because it's a little bit thicker. So let's let that go. Our sauce is simmering away nicely. It's actually our broth. Let's go back to the spinach. And you can see it's begun to shrink down a little bit, which is exactly what we want. You can start now to just about toss it around. And one of the things that's good is let's add some kosher salt. And again, don't be shy. What helps with the kosher salt will also help with is help leach some of the liquid out of the spinach, which will help it steam. Some black pepper if you like. Remember, we have that garlic in there. And we'll cover it back up. Let's see if we can toss it around a little bit. Yeah, there it goes. Starting to go. Starting to melt down. I can see the pieces of garlic in there. That's going to be really good with our salmon broth dish that we're doing. Again, you can see now it's all fitted into the wok, except for that guy there, which is sticking a little bit. And let's put our cover back on it. And I think we can probably begin to deal with the salmon. Yeah, let's flip that. It's been about maybe 3 minutes. Let's flip it onto that side. And you can see that's what you want to see. You want to see. This piece is a little more cooked, so that'll probably come out first. All right, let's go back over to the broiler. I'm driving our photographer crazy. She's lost her slippers. And we're going to again go in here and take a look. They're crisping up. And we're going to flip it again. Hot, isn't it, Ellen? Yeah. And keep them underneath that broiler and let them keep going. All right, so let's let this go a little bit further and we'll be back to you in a minute. So I just wanted to show you real quickly how those 2 bunches of spinach have absolutely shrunk down. You can see the pieces of garlic in there. And what do you think, Ellen? Should we make cream spinach out of this? What do you think? I don't know. Let's see. Let's cover it back up. Let's look at our salmon again. See how it's doing. The thinner piece is doing beautifully. The thicker piece, I'm just going to turn it on its side for a minute. Let's turn it that way first because it wants to go that way. Oh, look, a piece of spinach for me. And we'll kind of help that along over there. And we'll flip this one onto this side over here. We like our salmon around here a little bit on the medium rare side. It does not have to be cooked fully through, but you cook it the way you like it, and that'll make me happy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lower the heat on this salmon, kind of let it coast the rest of the way because I think it's really doing well right now. Let's take a look again at our salmon skin. And our salmon skin continues to get really beautiful. We're going to flip it again, and we're going to flip it again. We're going to put it back in there. It's still got a little bit more to go. Our broth is doing beautifully, and we are going to be very close to eating. I don't think we're going to do cream spinach tonight. I'm going to take the lid off of this, put it over by the sink, and we're pretty close to ready to just about plate up here. So let's show you how that's done. We're going to get one of the plates, and let's kind of come over here. And in fact, let's get both plates. This is nice served in a bowl like this. Put the handle over here. Salmon continues to come along. Let's lower the heat on the spinach because that's basically done. And we're going to take a ladle and we're going to take broth and put broth into both plates. There's plenty of broth here. There's actually enough broth to probably do 4 pieces of salmon. We'll take some of the broth. There's still little chunks in there, and that's fine. Okay, so we've got the broth there. Oh, we made a little messy. We'll clean that up because we want our plate to look really good. Okay. In the meantime, let's take our spinach, which is all done. Let's bring that over here. Let's get our spinach onto a nice serving dish. Anyone who knows me knows I love serving on white because the food really pops with its color. And we got the spinach, which took just a few minutes to cook, all that really nice garlic in there. And we didn't put any heavy cream in, we didn't do cream spinach. So there's our side dish. And now, let's bring over the salmon, which I think is right there. Yeah, that's right where we want it. Okay, here's our salmon. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a piece of salmon into each plate. Like that. And then we're going to take our garnish, which I mentioned earlier, which is some scallions and some nuts. In this case, it's chopped cashews. And we're going to top the fish. Whatever falls off into the broth is all fine, not a problem. The nuts, of course, will add a little crunch. In fact, let's put a little bit of the nuts and the scallions right into the broth. I think it looks really pretty. Okay, so we have that done. And now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to get those crispy creatures out of our oven. Do that, make sure you shut your oven off. I always get yelled at for that. And we're going to take a beautiful little crisp salmon skin piece and put it there. And a beautiful little crisp salmon skin piece and put it there. And there you have salmon in a smoky tomato broth, topped with a little bit of nuts and scallions and a salmon skin crunchy thing, and then our spinach. And we'll see you next time. Enjoy. Try it. Like and subscribe. Like it for the JCC. Like it for yourself. There'll be more videos every week, hopefully. We'll see you soon.